Okay, let me switch programs here. And we're going, while I do this, we're going to conduct, at this site anyway, a test of the funnel. Now, is anyone an attorney? I don't know what the liability of passing scissors around here is, but please be careful. Please be careful with the scissors, okay? Okay. Now, what the process is going to be, I could, yeah, that'd be great, Tom. Let's see. What the process is going to be is yes, everyone take a sheet of paper that I stole from my young daughter. But it's for a good cause. Okay? Yeah, just take some down and pass them around. 99 sheets of paper. Okay. If anyone needs any more, we've got this here. What I'm going to do, we're going to get a chance to deal with the funnel during class. Now, I recognize that at any given time, one of you will be diligently at work in this experiment, but you'll be able to catch up. Okay. What I've done is I have made a pattern here that I would like each of you to duplicate. Now the process, and on this it's named number 1. Okay, I've got number 1 written on here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give it to this lady here, and the scissors, and any way you wish, make an exact replica of that. Duplicate that. Okay, label it number 2. Okay, and then give number 2. If you could keep a heads up, Tom. What we'll do is give Tom the number 1, and give number 2 to this gentleman, and he's going to make one from number 2. You're going to make and label yours number 3, number 4, 5, 6. Okay, all the way across. And all you're going to see is the preceding work. Okay, and you want to make it exactly like this one. Okay, so to be careful. Do any way you can draw or trace it, cut it, I don't care how, but your assignment is to make one exactly like this, and then hand in the other ones. Okay? Any questions? Nope. Okay. Fairly straightforward. Okay. Having said that, we're going to start with the okay, here, let's see. Okay, well, let's see here. Yeah, this takes a while to start up. What we're going to do is this is the Deming experiment. Oh, well, okay, yeah. Well, let me. Okay, well, since this has gone up. Okay, this is the Deming experiment where everything you do apparently gets translated into the outcome of the process. If you hiccup, it's going to be in the process, in the outcome. Okay, and we're going to start with what Deming called Rule 1, and he said it was a stupidly simple experiment. The people could be anyone. The materials, piece of paper or a tablecloth on a table, a funnel for the equipment, something to fix the funnel, a lab stand, whatever. A marble to drop through the funnel and mark where the marble stopped, and essentially look at the patterns. Now the method that were used and you can follow it in the notes, in the PowerPoint notes, essentially is we're going to establish a rule, and we're going to drop a marble, mark where it lands on the table. If we haven't dropped 50, although this, because we got computers now, we don't need to hand drop 50. I'm going to do a simulation of 1,000. It'll go like that, and you'll see the pattern a lot better. But we're going to see if we've dropped enough of them, and more than one is a lot more than you folks do, or business people or engineers do in industry. Yep, boy, we fixed that. We got one off. That thing worked. Wrong. You need to check a number of prototypes, not just one. Okay, so you're going to see if you drop the requisite number of them. If you haven't, you're going to drop it again till you do. If you've dropped the requisite number of them, then you go into the stage of I'm going to try and look at the pattern. I'm going to see if I can learn something from the pattern to improve the rule, and then I'm going to try the rule again and again and again, and we'll see what happens. Now, rule 1 of the funnel is the base case where you are not moving the funnel, and all you're doing is dropping a marble 1,000 times. So what we're going to do, and this is Deming's writing on the blackboard here. Rule 1, we're going to put up. Leave the funnel fixed, aimed at the target, no adjustment, drop the marble 1,000 times. Okay, so we're going to drop it 1,000 times, and you're going to see, with no sound effects, we didn't think 1,000 clicks would do you well. Okay, so you're going to see that you get a pattern. All of them were not exactly on that little red or whatever color that target was. There's going to be variation around it. But so some of these are off target. There's the targets in the center. Some of them are off target. Some of them are pretty good off target. That's a shame. And what do we do as engineers and business people if something is off target? Here was the plan. Here's the voice of the customer says, I want it in the center there every time. The voice of the process says, well, you're going to get a lump of them there, but you're going to get some stuff out here. What do we try and do? Sorry? Yeah, you're going to start moving stuff around. And this is the basis of the first rule that we're going to, or the second, rule 2, is the engineer looks at this and says, this is not good enough. I need something better. And so we're going to go back to the second rule. Now the second rule says, essentially, okay, you've got the target, you've got the funnel sitting over the target, and you drop the first marble, and it's not on the target. And so what we're going to call the distance between the marble, where the marble is, and the target, we're going to call that the error, okay? It's a vector. The error is always measured from the target. So if I'm the marble here, I'm the target, marble's over here, the vector is an arrow vector going this way, and I'm going to try then by rule 2. Rule 2 says that wherever the funnel is, I am going to move that funnel from where it is to where I think it should be, so that the next drop goes right on target. Okay, so in a two-dimensional world, if this is the target here, and I take one step over this way, and the marble drops ends up here, I'm trying to aim over there. What do you think I might do? I think I might, now the funnel still's over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move the funnel over here, because the first one went over there, so the next one is going to be what? Right on the target. Does everyone see the logic on that? Okay, okay. So it went off one step to the left. I'm going to move my funnel, which was over the target, one step to the right, so that the next marble I drop, I'm predicting that the next one, by golly, is going to be right on the target. Okay? It's a algorithm that is used all over the place. Okay, so we're going to go to rule 2. And again, we're going to move the funnel from the last funnel position to a point equal and opposite to the observed error from the target. And we're going to do 1,000 drops. And again, you get a stable system. But you get a system with more variation. In fact, the variance is twice the variance of the original distribution. Okay, and if it's twice the variance, the diameter is 40 square root of 2, 1.41, 41% greater than the diameter of the original don't move the funnel. You, by your logic, said, I'm going to move the funnel based on this, so the next one gets right on the target, and you screwed it up. Okay? The variance is twice that. You've increased it by, you increased the diameter of drops here by 41%. Had you just left it alone, none of these outcomes would have happened. But they did because you, just doing your best, were adjusting the funnel. Anyone give an example, perhaps, of what happens, of things you do that follow Rule 2 of the funnel? We're going to give an example later on, automatic compensating equipment. You said something is supposed to be 10. And again, automatic compensating equipment compensates every piece. Computerized, nominal is supposed to be 10. It was 8. So you jack it up to 12, so the next one will be 10. The next one is whatever. You jack it down this way, this way, this way, doubling the variance. Again, nothing out of control, but you'd have been better off leaving the thing alone.
Golf shot.
Golf shot. Explain it, would you?
Well, you line up what you think you lined up. And if you hit 10 balls without changing your alignment, you'd probably have a dispersion pattern around that some area.
Sure.
But after you hit your first one, you say, okay, I'm over there to the left, so now I'm going to move over to the right beam, and then it'll go right over there. Whereas in reality, you just moved your dispersion out.
Sure, sure. Yeah, and on the driving range, it's a lot easier. But when you're playing a round of golf, the only thing you can remember is your last drive hooked, and so you might try and compensate for that. Yeah. Good example. Good example. We do it all the time. We do it all the time. Any other examples? I'll get into some later.
Cruise control.
Cruise control, absolutely. Absolutely. Automatic temperature control as well. I hate to, one American automobile company, who shall remain nameless, had a problem with the automatic temperature control, climate control in the vehicle. It seems they were having high warranty because the customer, stupid customer, Floridian customers, obviously, below average, yes, yeah. No, well, you had above average temperature down here, and so when you get in the vehicle, it's hot, and so they started whipping the temperature thing way down, and then back up, not believing that it was automatic, but it would end up goofing up the warranty because the equipment would break, because you're slewing that thing back and forth, and the servo isn't going to keep up with it. And so what we did was we just delayed. We would not the computer will not accept any input for the first 4 minutes when the vehicle is started, so you can twit that thing around all you want, and it's not going to do a thing. Okay, I had a friend of mine, a very good friend of the family. a couple built a house, and the spouse, it was either too hot or too cold, and the spouse would come and adjust the thermostat. And this is the same principle, and it was either be too hot or too cold. It'd be nice if they would agree on a comfortable temperature of the dwelling, but they didn't. And so one spouse would put it one way and the other way, shift it back. And when they were building the house, one of them talked to the HVAC contractor and said, and the contractor was putting up the thermostat, and he said, "Okay, well, tell you what I want to do. We're going to put a dummy thermostat there, and I'll show you where to put the real thermostat." And the spouse just went back and forth, and nothing would happen, but the spouse was happy because, but there was nothing happening. It wasn't connected.
It wasn't the car company's mistake, really, putting a thermostat thing in there. I mean, we're all happy with turn the fan up a little bit more, turn the fan down. We were happy with that. They had to put a thermostat thing in there.
Yeah.
That's where the real mistake came in.
Yeah. Okay, we're moving them down? Okay. Yeah. Again, well, that's one of the reasons they took off the knobs from color TVs. If you can remember in the early days, all sorts of adjustments but that would end up goofing them up. You're lucky now if you get one button but now I think they're making the mistake in putting all the controls back in again. But there are numerous things that happen when you adjust. In one manufacturing process, they had three machines, and they noticed that one machine the production of the machine was far better than the other two machines. Engineers came in and said, "Well, it's a good one. This is what's happening here." And when they tore the stuff down and looked at it, it was a simple matter of, and this is a 3-shift operation, and it shouldn't be any surprise that each shift had their special way of setting up the machinery. Those of you who were in production, and so one would set it this way, and the next shift would come in, and they'd click it the other way. Well, the machine that had the best output, the set screw on the pot was broken, and they were dialing it, but nothing would happen because it wasn't connected to the thing, and that was the machine that had the best output because you weren't screwing around with it. The knob was broken. Okay, so this is an example, a simple Rule 2. It's stable, so you think, by golly, it's predictable. We're doing good. I'm adjusting it over this way, putting a little bit back there when it needs to be. You really need to. One of the first steps in process improvement is what? Leave it alone. See what'll happen. Okay, and a lot of managers walk in the top levels and say to themselves, "By golly, I'm glad I was at that meeting because you folks would have crashed and burned this place." Okay, and decisions, second-guessing decisions, and always being there to make an adjustment. When you're dealing with people, same problem. Over control. That's rule 2. Not surprisingly, since we have 4 rules, you can do worse than Rule 2. And we're going to do worse than Rule 2. We're going to do Rule 3. Rule 3 happens to be the aim is still the target. We're still going to try and do the target. But the method we're going to use is, well, maybe we're in a situation where we don't know where the last funnel was. Certainly when we did know where it was and adjusted it, that didn't work. It doubled the variance. But if we can just know where the error is, and we know where that thing was dropped, okay, what we're going to do is, regardless of where the funnel is, all I'm going to do is flip the error vector around the target. Okay, so no matter where the funnel is, Rule 2, I had to know where the funnel was, okay, because I was going to take the error vector and I was going to and you can see it well in the CD-ROM. When you run through this section in there, you're gonna take it from the base of the funnel for Rule 2 and move it off. In Rule 3, you just measure the error vector and you're going to flip it around the target. Fairly simple. So if it was one step this way, it's one step that way. If it was 2 steps this way, it's going to be 2 steps that way if the thing will let you. Okay, so it's a very simple calculation. Well, let's see what happens when we do Rule 3. You saw Rule 3 the other day when we did this, and Rule 3 literally is the Tacoma Narrows collapse. Okay, it's harmonic. You're going to go off. You go to the Milky Way in 2 directions. Sometime you might come back. Deming said you get a bow tie. That's a pattern there. Let's look at that again. We'll do Rule 3 again. See, we get a different pattern. Again, it's just a Monte Carlo here. Okay, and so, but the thing is, here's your original target. If the first one was there, the second one was there, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Okay, so, and then all of a sudden it might start going off this way, and it went off to the Milky Way in 2 directions. Okay, systems explode. In the physical world, bridges collapse because you're getting the harmonics. In the personal world, you get when you're trying to treat depression, you can get the mathematics underlying of manic depressive. Okay, so go from one extreme to the other, and tearing it apart. The thing in industry and in bridges, engineering bridges, a lot of times before this thing starts to explode, we physically corral it in. Okay, in bridges, the harmonics are still there. You just raise the frequency. Okay, so you try and stiffen them instead of making light and wispy. In vehicles, every vehicle has a harmonic, but you just try and make it so that it's not in the normal driving range. Any physical thing has harmonics. Yes, sir.
Move the funnel for every drop.
Yes, we're moving the funnel for every drop. Yes. Yes. And again, trying to be conscientious. Now, if you kept these rules and said, okay, I'm going to drop 10 of them and then take the same rule on the average, you'd still get the same patterns, only the results would be delayed. They'd be dampened. It's a dampening. Okay, but you still would get, if you took 10 before you adjusted and took the center point, you'd still get the same thing. Okay. Those of you who, well, again, you play this game in the personal game, but you stop it way before it goes out of control. You wake up in the morning and you take a shower, and you turn on, and you're waiting for the hot water. Well, I need hot water, so I'm going to turn hot water. Yow! Okay, you turn it down, turn more cold water on. Rule 3 of the funnel, and you jump out of the stream or what? I don't know. You might. But that's an example of Rule 3 of the funnel. Anyone give me an example of Rule 3 of the funnel in your work?
Anyone who's ever lost control in like a rainstorm or on ice will know that you
Yes.
turn one way and you whip the wheel the other, and before you know it, your car is
Absolutely,
in the ditch.
absolutely. Yep. Overcompensating and one swing to another. Trying to right a sailboat. Or steadying a boat, going from one side to the next. Others in Rule 3? Yeah.
If it's anything like me playing golf,
Oh yeah. Hook slice. Okay.
Sounds like the political system in this country too, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
Things just get
Political
more and
system?
more wacky based on public opinion polls and legislation like that.
Absolutely. Although a lot of that might be closer to Rule 4, which we'll talk about, but much of public policy is. For instance, drug policy. In the supposed war against drugs, and this is an economic lesson. This is supply and demand. you spend more money to siphon down or choke down the supply of drugs. What happens to the price of drugs? Goes up. More lucrative for folks to stay in it, so more money's got to be spent there, and it's one. You're going from one to the other, and we'll see. Yeah, it'll explode on either end. So many times, public policy throwing money at something, which then permits someone to get in the act where they weren't in before, can explode the system. Other examples? Yeah. Arms race, good example as well. Yep.
Is that akin to the pendulum swinging? Is that what we're getting across, or is that more Rule 4 that you're saying? Conservative, liberal, conservative, pendulum swinging.
The math on the pendulum is dampened. Okay, so you get our Foucault's pendulum will go for a long while, but that's a specific geometry. Going from one to the other, I mean, it's a good analogy, but the math is different. The underlying math is different because it's dampening. The math in this thing, when you're out this way, you're swinging over to this way, and then it's going to get even worse. So whereas so it's not the underlying math is not the same, but it's a good analogy though as far as visual, swinging from one side to the next. Yeah. Other examples. You need to be able to identify these rules. There'll be a heads up. That's going to be one of the questions that you're going to have. Okay.
Who wants to differentiate between these rules?
Yeah, I'd like to. As a test to see if you can see the different ones where they would apply. That certainly would be helpful because it's going to be helpful to you as you try and improve your processes. When you're in funnel conditions, there's a whole different set of things you got to be concerned about. Okay.
Are we talking about an out-of-control crisis situation? 7 days in May, that type of thing?
Well, as I said, a lot of when you're in Rule 3 and Rule 4 conditions, management will try to somehow most of the time it gets stopped. The times it doesn't get stopped in the political arena, you end up with war. You end up with rebellion. You end up with in the engineering field. You try to what? You try to over-design, okay, which costs a lot of money. You're trying to physically contain the underlying variation that's there. It's a brute force method. But sometimes nuclear reactors pop, melt down, okay, and it gets uncontained, gets supercritical. Yeah, there are most of the time we try and contain Rule 3 and Rule 4. We'll reorganize. If it gets too much chaos, if it's not, and long before it blows up in our face, we'll do something to try and change the system. What did you have in mind with the question?
I'm trying to differentiate between 2 and 3 to tell you the truth. It sounds
Okay, yeah.
like
3 has the big potential of blowing up. 2 is stable, but it's more variation than Rule 1. Okay.
sounds like when you confuse your computer and it locks up. You keep on pushing different buttons, and pretty soon the computer gets all, I call it confused,
It
and
might.
you just have to shut it down and reset.
Yeah, yeah. Could be Rule 3.
Virus containment.
Sorry?
What about virus containment? Would that kind of fall into this?
What containment?
Virus,
Virus containment.
computer or biological?
Yeah. How do you see it?
I was just, one of the recent viruses that got into one of our systems, it seemed like we were chasing it down. So we'd make repairs one place, and the next thing you know, it would pop up another. So we'd go over there and make repairs, and the next thing you know, we have to go another. And the next thing you know, we're running all over before, and we were doing just that, trying to contain it before it went firm-wide.
Yeah. That's depending on the underlying mechanism, the intervention could cause the spread. The mere fact you're trying to change the system. The underlying premise of any Michael Crichton novel. Okay, it will get into systems thinking, but you're trying to. Nowhere are you going to be able to put a cap on everything. Okay, now we get to Rule 4. By this time, we've figured that it's not worth going after the target. Never makes it anyway, and so our aim is different in Rule 4. Our aim in Rule 4 is to make them all alike. Okay? Somehow figured out that that uniformity, our customers can deal with just about anything as long as they're all the same, and then they just need one process set up to account for all of them. So we're going to try and make them all alike. When you do that, you have the classic random walk. You go to the Milky Way in one direction. That went off there. It might come back. Whoop! Oh, it's coming back, and that's a random walk. Okay. Everyone should have. Yes, Tom.
That's where you move the funnel to where it was last hit.
That's right. That's right. You're trying to make them all the same, and so the rule is, wherever, if I'm here, and it ended up there, I'm going to set the funnel right over where I dropped it. Going to drop it again, trying to make it just right the same, and it's a random walk. Okay. Brownian motion, random walk. Anyone give examples of Rule 4 in what they're doing? Trying to make this one just like the last one. You're doing a Rule 4 experiment right now. You're trying to make it just like the last one. You're trying to make it just like the last one, and we're going to see what it is. Going back into ancient history, World War I. Again, in communication, I think they call the game telephone. Whisper something, whisper, but da 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 da. And in World War I, they would relay the messages instead of the telegraph. They'd send the, shout it down or whatever, and the person on the battlefield said, "Send reinforcements. We're going to advance." By the time it got back to headquarters, it was, "Send reinforcements. We're going to a dance." Couldn't figure it out. Headquarters could never figure it out. So things get mixed up in the translation. One of Dr. Deming's biggest gripes was worker training worker. You don't have, a lot of people commented about the training in their organization. You get there 3 months, it's your job, you're an expert now, it's your job to teach the new person how to do it. Just like the previous new person taught you how to do it. Off you go to the Milky Way. Guaranteed. Management going to trying to use the latest management fad. Off you go to the Milky Way. They know someone who knew someone who knew someone who did this. Anytime, in manufacturing, or any kind of process industries. For instance, paint. Trying to paint a vehicle, and some very good vehicle companies do this, or did this. The better ones don't do it anymore, but some still do. Most of them still do. And that is, you come up with this beautiful cherry red color for this car. Okay, and so you say, by golly, make one like this, and they do that. And they save a batch of that paint, take it back to the formulator, and make one just like that one. And keep doing that, and after a few batches, the nice red you started off with isn't the same red. The eye can detect probably 2 or 3 color gradations real quickly, and you're off 20 gradations. Now you say, well, that's not too bad. Red's red. It's still a nice red. But how are you going to sell paint to the bump shops to repaint that vehicle? You can't match it. You can't patch it up, can't touch it up. High cost of trying to make one just like the last one. process industries when you're trying to duplicate a formula, a liquid formula, save that last batch. What in baking, the sourdough, dealing with some of that stuff can get pretty raunchy. But trying to save the last one as a starter, going whatever. Off you go to the Milky Way. Any examples from your works, your processes?
This isn't from
Yes.
work. It was building a brick wall using the previous brick to line up your next brick. And then after about 5 feet, I realized, oh, this isn't as straight, better.
Absolutely
and,
great.
And without real planning ahead of time. So previous, you straighten it up just perfect, but it does not come out straight.
Great example.
Yeah.
Anyone ever wallpaper a room without snapping the blue chalk? Okay, you do the first one and you make the one, and by the time you get around, those things are going like that. Lumber, trying to cut a bunch of 2x4s, going from one, instead of going back to the original, just by the lift of the blade of the saw, one contractor ruined a whole slab of wood, side of wood, because the 2x4s started out at 10 feet, and he, by the width of the saw, by the time he had one apprentice cut 100 of them, what's 100 times an eighth? That ended up visibly short. That's rule 4 of the funnel, trying to make the last one just like the previous one. Others?
Shingles on a roof.
Sorry?
Shingles on a roof.
Okay, how so?
Oh, same way with the bricks. You get that top and try to make that straight line, but next thing you know, you're going with the grain of the roof.
Yeah.
Straight down.
Okay. You're trying to fit it just to the next one. Yeah. Even if you do the chalk line first, depending on how long it is between chalk lines, you're in big problems. Yes.
You may have a problem when you're trying to communicate something from the top to the bottom in an organization, and if you don't support anything in writing, then chances the information is distorted when it gets to the bottom.
Absolutely. And you talk to many top leaders, and that's one of their biggest problems that they admit to. They say it's they in their mind know where they want to take the place, but by the time it gets communicated down to everyone in the organization, it's everyone doing their best. It doesn't even bear resemblance to where they thought it would. Very strong influence in communication. How you're going to communicate. If you're going to try and consistently communicate, do you think that, and this was a big advocacy for interlocking teams. I don't know if any of you in business school heard of those, than to wander too far off, and that's just a very powerful way of reducing variation in communication. Yes, Chair.
Another example might be like an editing process.
Oh, what process?
Editing, where you write, somebody writes something and it goes through a layer of editors up, and by the time it gets to the last guy, you read what got printed, you're like, man, that's not what I wrote.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yep.
They cut a little bit here, cut a little there, it's
Yeah.
out of context
Yep.
now.
Absolutely. Other examples? How are we doing on the scissors? I see someone, or who? Oh, it's right there. Okay. So it's gone. No? Oh,
The below average
it's
side of the
just
room's
there.
not
The
playing.
you guys are. Oh, you're going to take the below average.
We're gonna let the above average side of the room take care of this experiment.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well,
We
okay.
don't feel safe with scissors.
Okay, so those are the, what we're going to do is try a different one. I'll give you a chance to hear Deming say it. And what I'm going to do is use another CD that we did a few years ago. It's a 2 CD thing on Deming. Most of it's Deming. No, that's the other one, but 2 CD. we'll see if it works. It does work, but it was a few years ago, so the effort is a little less technology than the one we've got out now.
Dr. Schackenbach.
Yes, yes, yes.
I apologize. I can't hear you at this point. I put the TV on mute. However, Rule 4 sounds like it's not very effective in business. Can you expand? Is that something that is accepted in business? Let me put the phone on hold.
Actually, the seminar's a lot better if you put it on mute. Okay, what? I will answer that. Let me get out of this silly thing here. Where is the thing? Give me the choice here. Okay. This is best.
Anybody here that is not putting forth their best effort? I've been inquiring for years, haven't found him yet. Everybody doing his best. That's our problem. Doing the wrong thing, working so hard at it.
Okay.
No substitute for.
That reminds me, Deming used to give courses at NYU Graduate Business School, and he would and this was when he started making the name for himself.
Actually, we'll see this afternoon when they do the experiment on the funnel, they were tampering, making things worse.
Okay. And it got so that he could give a course on anything, and he would say that it got ridiculous, and he did do this. He said one time he gave a course called How to Increase Your Costs, and he said people came.
Now, although Dr. Deming was an excellent teacher.
Oh, well, you had to have been there. Okay. Let's, so we'll quickly go, we're going to go through this again because it's very important for you to get these rules down. Okay, so we're going to go through, I said it once, now we'll have Deming give you a chance to see it. And we'll use this.
Let us drop the marble through the funnel 50 times. Funnel aimed at the target. Mark the spot where the marble comes to rest. Drop the marble.
The funny thing here is if you don't click this thing.
Don't just sit there and do nothing.
Okay.
You drop the marble through the funnel. Look down through it. Aim at the target. Drop the marble. Marble falls to the table. Bounce it around. Finally comes to rest. Maybe close to the target. They bounce around, end up close to the target. Seems to have no fixed ideas.
Okay.
You
so
aim at the target.
Now I'll do rule 2.
So, somebody comes through with rule 2. Move the funnel from its last position. Well, the first drop, rule 1, rule 2 would be the same. Move the funnel. This is a place we're trying to achieve quality. Move the funnel to compensate for the last error. So surely that'll be better. If the marble comes to rest 40 centimeters southwest of the target, we take hold of the funnel and move it 40 centimeters northeast, just opposite, to compensate for that error. So the next drop will go right on the target. We drop the marble 50 times by rule 2. We get a rough circle. Sometimes get points close to the target. Sometimes close to what we got by rule 1. We drop 50 times. by Rule 2, take a look at the results. Behold, they're worse than they were before. They get a bigger circle than they got before. A rough circle, but obviously bigger than the one they got by Rule 1. With all that effort, they only made things worse.
So we go to Rule 3.
So, somebody sees what the trouble is. Perfectly obvious. That was not the right thing to do. Anybody should know. Make an adjustment from the target, not from this last position. Perfectly obvious, isn't it? So he comes through with Rule 3. Adjust the funnel based on the target. Adjustment based on the target to compensate for the last error. So what do we get? We set the funnel over the target and then make the adjustment. So the next one will fall over here. The next one will fall over there maybe. Seems to go back and forth. Ever increasing amplitude. Sometimes it seems to shrink for a few drops and expand. Gets worse and worse. Explodes in both directions. Disappointment. Somebody suggests, forget the target. Never mind the target. Let's make them all alike. Preferably near target value, sure enough. At least make them all alike. Achieve uniformity. After all, the target was only somebody's idea. At least we can make them all alike. Achieve uniformity. To do that, we call it Rule 4. Set the funnel right over the last drop. Right over the last drop. What do we get? Well, we get a point here, and maybe one closer to the target. Seems to be approaching the target and goes away, on its way, Milky Way.
Okay. Okay. Everyone got that down now? That'll be the assignment.
Dr. Schurgenbach.
Yes, on Rule 4.
This is our, so we're still confused between Rule 2 and 3. Seems like Rule 3 is you almost do the same thing as Rule 2.
Okay, and that's why okay. The first drop for Rule 2, first two drops of Rule 2 and 3 are the same. It's a subtle difference, but the difference between Rule 2 and 3 is Rule 2, you are moving the funnel from where it was. The funnel could be anywhere, and you're taking that error vector, and the old-fashioned way would be to think of parallelogram, well, no, or parallel rules. Can we do this? Okay. Here's your, in rule, let's say Rule 2. God, I'm actually using this technology here. Okay, here. Okay, you've got, can you see that? Here's the target, okay? In all of the rules, the funnel is initially set over the target, okay? The first drop, let's say, is there. The error is this vector, and in rule, and so for Rule 2 and Rule 3, because the funnel is coincident with the target, Rule 2 is you're going to take this error vector, flip it around, and you're going to put it at the base of the funnel and move the funnel. Funnel position 2 is going to be there for Rule 2, and it's going to be there for Rule 3, because the Rule 3 rule is, I don't care where the funnel is, I'm going to take the error vector and flip it over from the target. See? Okay, so this is Rule 2, here's Rule 3, and here's the same setup. We're going to, here's your first drop, your second drop, and so the funnel position, this is drop 1, this is drop 2, okay? And this is where they diverge, okay? So let's say it's, let's say the next one is 90 degrees relative to the funnel here. The error vector is always from the target, so the error vector is here. You're going to take this error vector, you're going to flip it around, and you're going to put it from the root of it on there, and your funnel position 3 is funnel position 3 is there. Follow so far? The difference here is we're going to take that same drop and we're going to look at the error vector, and we're just going to flip the error vector from the target, and funnel position 3 for rule 3 is there. You see the difference? It's confusing, I know, because the first 2 drops are going to be the same for both rules, but they quickly major differences between what happens if you got your machinery programmed to rule 3 versus rule 2. Rule 2, you're just doubling the variance. Rule 3, you're exploding the system. Just that subtle change. Does that take care of it for you?
Yes, thank you.
Okie doke. Okay. Okay, let's get back to the let's do the PowerPoint thing, because I'd like to show you an example of Rule 2. I thought. Now, what do we have here? I think we've got. No, okay, we'll. Amazing how impatient one gets. And 2 years ago, we would have loved anything this fast. Okay. Okay, okay, adjustment of schedules based on last job. What rule do you think that follows? 4. Anytime, yeah. If it took you 10 hours to do a job last time, you figure, well, we'll estimate 10 hours for this next job. But it only takes 8, so you're going to try and make them all the same. Wander off. Expediting. What rule do you think that might follow? Common inventory practice. Expediting. Back robbing. Sorry?
Is it 2?
Well, it could be 2 or 3. Expediting is as I use the term also, back robbing. You're cannibalizing. What you're doing is you're trying to, if someone has an order that says they need it right now, you're going to take something from someone else's order because this order's got priority, and now that order's delayed. And it's a game of swinging one way to the other, and you can end up with far more variation than if you just said take a number. The system gets very convoluted real quick. Calibration of an instrument to a standard. Now here's, yeah, let me quickly go to that. Last batch, engineering changes based on the last version, changing company policy, added based on the last attitude study. Here's automatic compensating equipment. Well, okay. Okay. This is an example. Can you, well, I guess, okay, that, is there any way to show the lower part of that, or are we pretty much hamstrung there? Pretty much hamstrung, I guess. Okay. Okay, so we don't have an overscan button out there?
Just take it off a slideshow.
Huh?
Hit escape, take it off a slideshow, and then.
Oh, okay, that's, thank you. That'll do it. There we go. Well, uh-oh. Hate when that happens.
Are you sure you want to take it off slideshow?
What happened to the graphics? Ah! They disappeared. I don't believe this. You might, Jerry might know Excel. I don't have a clue. I don't have a
Was it an
picture.
inserted picture? It might not show.
Okay.
I put the right arrow button.
Best way to do that is get out of it, don't save it.
And so we go to rule 4.
Yeah, rule 4 of the funnel right now. Here we go.
And you wanted to give me scissors?
Okay, we're going to try this. Hopefully it didn't go into the magic kingdom. Okay. This is a piece of automatic compensating equipment that we had over in Ford of Europe a number of years ago. And again, there isn't anyone who wouldn't say, or didn't say then, and probably doesn't say now. Several of your suggestions were, if only we could spend more money and get new equipment, we could get better quality. Everyone familiar with that line? Deming would say if he were a banker, he wouldn't loan you a penny unless you could show him as the banker that you knew how to use the stuff you were dealt with to begin with. Because, again, one of the quicker ways to make an improvement is to change the method. Since you're dealing in computerized stuff anyway, the algorithms that, I mean, the folks in Europe spent a heck of a lot of money for automatic compensating equipment. And it happened to be, we looked at the program, and it was programming by rule 2 of the funnel. Okay? And such that if a piece came in that was off nominal, and nominal, we've centered this here. If it was there, it would move it so the underlying thing, so the next one would be just right. And they didn't believe the theory. They said, no, we're making transmissions here. We know exactly what we're doing. And we said, humor us. Make 50 pieces, and we'll measure them. So they 50 pieces, and because it was automatic compensating, it was automatic data logging, and we were able to spit this out real quick. Okay, we said humor us. Turn the compensator off. Make 50 pieces. And so the next 50 pieces they made look like that. They were absolutely astounded. Okay, they said, and embarrassed when they thought about it, because they had just justified their corporate expenditures, spent a few $1 million on automatic compensating equipment, trying to quickly keep it within spec, and everything was within spec. That's what they were paid to do. They turn it off, and that's what they get. Now, not knowing anything about a quadratic loss function, not knowing anything about the finities or subtleties of some of the things you're going to know by the end of the semester, it doesn't take too much to figure out that the second distribution without the next 50 pieces without the automatic compensator on is a better output than the one with the compensator on. And yet someone convinced their management to spend the money to get the latest computer-controlled equipment. Computers will jerk it around a lot quicker, but they mess it up a lot quicker too. Okay. Anyone in their processes use automatic compensating equipment or anything similar to that? And again, all the data I show are real. We've collected them somewhere.
Isn't an automatic braking system an automatic compensating system, ADS system?
Yeah, it depends on how it's programmed. Some of them are programmed fairly nice. The problem is it's fairly linear. The operator can goof up an ABS system by resorting to old practices and trying to pump the brakes, and you disable it. You confuse the thing. Do the set points. Yes, sir.
I remember a friend of mine, his first car, I can't remember what year it was, but it was a Maverick, and it had supposedly self-adjusting brakes. I never understood what it meant, but occasionally we'd go to a deserted parking lot and he'd drive in reverse and put the brakes on, and then supposedly brought them back into adjustment. Well, we ended up, it was kind of fun, we used to drink beer and do it, but we went every 2 days. And I don't know if it was necessary or not, but it became sort of ludicrous after a while.
Yeah. Don't know either. I do not know the mechanism behind how they think that's going to. I do know that vehicles did have that. I don't think they have them now, though. Okay. What I'd like to do, I know. Let's see. We're scheduled for a break at 7:30, right? Okay. What I'd like to do is, this is one of these unfortunate days where I've covered everything that I was going to cover before the end of class was scheduled. I know it's unfortunate, but what I would like to do, okay, yeah, let's see how we're doing so far. Let's see how we're doing so far. Okay. Can we do the overhead? Here's the first one. And here's number 16 so far. Who wasn't doing their job? This is you got fairly sharp scissors there. Who goofed up? Okay, now we got 22. You guys, I thought you were above average. Here's number 1, number 22. I think we're filling in the curves here somewhere. Sort of nice, comfortably filling it in. Actually, I tell a story of Rule 4. I mean, weight loss and gain is like that. I mean, you look in the mirror and you say, oh, that's not too much more than yesterday. Looking pretty good there, yep. And pretty soon, it's there. My grandfather in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, his brother worked at J.C. Penney's when they first started having stores a long time ago. And old JC started offering stock options to his employees. That was a good deal. In any event, Tommy worked at the J.C. Penney store, and my grandfather Al would walk in there and he'd say, Tommy, yep, need another pair of pants. Yep, just like always, size 32. And Tommy would say, yep, that's right, Al. And he'd give him a size 38, and they'd fit. So by the time the brothers had grown. Didn't have a clue. Always thought he was a 32. Okay. Those are good salespeople. Okay, so that's relatively quick. 22 iterations with very highly skilled and highly educated workers. And off we go to the Milky Way. You're going to see it everywhere. Again, the funnel setup is what? On the other extreme of the bead setup. Okay, some processes, no matter what you do, nothing gets translated into the outcome. Some processes, if you hiccup, It gets translated into the income. And if you try and make it better, all of these rules were constructed by managers who weren't trying to goof up the thing. Their logic said they could make it better. Okay? Okay? That's what their logic said. Now, these are the questions for, well, there's 18 differences years ago. Number 1 and number 18. Okay, the question for homework is provide a specific example of the movement of the funnel in a process you personally manage. What might you do to reduce the variation caused by your movement of the funnel? If you could. Now, if you can't think of one for each rule, that's fine. But identify the rule you think it fits with. If you can identify them, an example of Rule 2, Rule 3, and Rule 4, that would even be greater. That would be fantastic. Again, to help you recognize these situations, whether you're in bead box conditions or more in funnel conditions, or you might be in between. And next week we're going to talk about what's in between. Because we've talked about, last week we talked about the epitome of defect detection, which was better than making something and letting your customer do their inspection for you and then saying we don't like it and go somewhere else. So defect detection, detecting defects before you send them to the customer, was a pretty good idea. That's high quality at high cost. Defect prevention, which is what we discussed today, although I didn't say that until now, but what we're trying to do, we're adjusting the process because we're trying to make things better before the defect is made. Unfortunately, the way we adjusted the process made things worse. Can anyone think of ways that might, how could we change this funnel process to make things better?
Modify the funnel.
Sorry?
Modify the funnel.
How so?
Well, make the marble go down the same track every single time.
And stop
Okay,
there.
okay.
Stop the marble.
Yeah, you could rifle the funnel, okay, and have the marble, like sort of like a firearm, okay? And
Lower the funnel.
Put it closer.
there you go. Okay, we're thinking XY direction there. You can make it far worse by going up, and you can make it far better by putting that thing right there in the Z direction. So yeah, expand your horizons. We're in a three-dimensional world. How else could you do better than Rule 1?
Modify the marble.
How so?
Making them not bounce as much.
Make them what?
Not bounce as much, where they just drop.
Make them square, sure. Yeah, so they don't roll as much. Sure. How else? What else could you do? Tablecloth. Wet the tablecloth.
Make it sticky.
What else could you do?
Make it
Put it in a vacuum.
Convex, yeah. Put a dimple on the thing, and so it'd go in the center. You could make the marbles metal and put a magnet under the target, and it would stay there. Better chance of doing that. What else?
After it lands, you pick it up and put a dot there, because when the next ball comes, it's going to hit it and it's going to shoot off. So.
I think that's what they do.
After you drop one marble,
Better.
you need to mark the spot and pick the marble up, because when you drop another marble, it's going to hit the marble and then they're going to ricochet.
Oh, okay.
We're already doing that.
Change the target every time you drop it to fit.
There you go. Change the target every time you drop it. That's Rule 4. From backwards, yes, that's Rule 4. How else could you improve it?
Hire more skilled workers.
Hire more skilled. Sure.
You can actually spiral it down. The path can be made more smooth.
Yeah, you could. All sorts of things you could do to do better than Rule 1. As much as defect prevention, and it is, you're trying to prevent defects from happening before they happen, is an improvement over defect detection. Next week we're going to talk about the process, managing a process by continual improvement. Hopefully by the end of the week or by Friday I'll have a PDF file, and you can everyone have PDF readers, Adobe Acrobat readers? You can download it. Okay, you got that. Okay, good. Please find it. So I'm going to put a PDF file of this workbook up. I remember in the beginning I said I got two workbooks. I got one, Constancy of Purpose, which we'll get into later, and Continual Improvement. I'm going to put the Continual Improvement workbook up, and we'll go through that next week and talk about a process that's far better than trying to prevent defects. You're going to be able to continually improve and look at the systems. Before we leave, take 2 minutes. What one thing did you learn, and what do you think you're going to do about it? Look each other in the eyeball and share it with you, and then I'll pick 5 from the classroom before we leave.
So process controllers, are they not like PID?
What?
Process controllers. We took a class where we were taught that controllers for your system, like a chemical reaction where you can control flow rate, temperature, comparable to a set point, and you change your gain, your time constant, your rate of change, your variance. Is that something similar to Rule 3, where you're trying to minimize the variance around your set point?
Yes, it is.
Next week?
It could be similar to Rule 3 or Rule 2. Again, all of this is a subtlety. I don't want you going off and saying with a little bit of knowledge here, and that is the starting point is a stable system. Rule 1. Rule 2, if you're not starting with a stable system, for instance, in a system that has drift, okay, and chemical reactions, chemical processes have drift that isn't particularly stable, every so often yanking that thing back after a deviation can do better than what you start with, but what you're starting with is not a stable process. So in certain situations with drift, Rule 2 can be useful. A lot of chemical processes are that way when you're dealing with solutions and chemistries that can drift. And so a lot of those automatic compensators for chemical processes can be useful. If you have a chemical process, however, that doesn't drift, that can be looked at as stable, then Rule 2 will make it worse. Okay, you guys, nobody's talking. We're talking. Okay, what did you learn, and you're going to share it? Make a eyeball-to-eyeball contact. You're going to make a contract with one another. Creative folks. Okay, we need 5 folks, 2 from the below average side and 3 from the above average side. Hey, it's the. Huh?
Did we swap? I thought we were above that. On this side.
Sometimes riding high in April, shot down in May.
We took the vouchers.
What did I just say? Above and below average has no meaning. No meaning. So yes, you folks are below average now. How does that make you feel? Any examples? One thing you learned, and what do you think you're going to do with it on the below average side? Yes.
I learned a lot about Rule 4, and when we talked about the telephone game, it really kind of struck a chord that a lot of times in our organizations have a top-down formalized communication plan, but there really is no plan to communicate from the bottom up in a formal way. And so what we hear, what gets passed from the bottom up, probably is much more distorted than the information that we get top down. And so I was going to bring that point to my manager's attention, because it's true, we don't have any mechanism to
Put the voice, yeah.
Right.
yeah. Voice
Get
of the
the voice
customer
of the
gets
customer.
filtered down, but
Right.
you also have to have a mechanism to put the voice of the process back up. Yeah.
Even the voice of the customer
Yeah.
back
oh,
up.
okay. Okay. From the employee
From the
standpoint.
employee
Yeah.
standpoint.
Yeah. Okay. Good. One from the above average side now. One thing yes. What did you learn?
Well, we were just talking about this, and we decided that all the processes there are 5 components to every process, right? Your people, your environment, your equipment, materials, methods.
Oh, that's great.
Now, and
You just learned
And
it?
so I'm looking at not paying attention to just one aspect, not just the funnel. And since I'm not working, I can only relate this to my personal life. And it's the dealing with my son, 14-year-old son. We all know about teenagers and trying to get the kind of performance we'd like out of them. And I think I'll recognize that not only is there his performance that I need to address, but there's the time of the day I do it, his attitude, what we're doing at the time. And so I have to look at all different components and try to improve my approach to him in incremental steps. And there are many different areas I can improve that.
Okay.
Not hit him the first thing in the morning when he wakes up, for example, with this problem.
Yeah. Or overcorrect.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay. Now one from the below average, another one. You don't have to be huffy about it, just because you lost above average status. Yes, sir.
I learned that sometimes doing nothing is better than doing something. So
Yes.
how I'm going to do
Just
that?
something, stand there. Yeah. Okay. How about the above average side? One thing that you learned, and what do you think you're going to do with it? How about the above average back row? Go back there.
And human factors, it's an industrial class on them. I know some people will take it. But we did a lab one time where there was about 10 key points in the conversation between this guy and a girl. And one of them was like the salad landed on the top of this person's head, and all the funny things and the big things stood out. Well, at the end of it, by going through the 9th or 10th person, when it was done, there was only like 2 or 3 things that were repeated that were remembered. For instance, like Rule 4.
Okay.
That were just, so we remember the important things, remember the first things and the last things, so.
Okay, well and that's when we talk about surveys later on, that's an extremely important thing when people ask you to rank order stuff. We'll build on the bead box and the funnel as we proceed. How about the offsites? Anyone learn anything out there?
Yeah, this is Sarasota.
Okay, yeah, Sarasota.
I learned that, I guess the more variations that you would have across the, I guess the more error you would also have. I don't know how to explain that, but basically, if you could reduce variations, then hopefully you'll reduce the outcome error. Or hopefully get a better product.
Yeah, if you can reduce variation for the most part, and as we'll see later on around a particular target, it's going to be better from the customer standpoint. Yeah. Okay, yes.
Just to add on that, what someone had mentioned earlier about the business aspect of what we were talking about tonight.
Yeah.
It's important too, like correspondence. That you have a client, he tells you what you want to do at the beginning, and you have an understanding. Well, a week later you need to touch base with him, and then eventually when it's done, and the way he wanted it, the way you wanted it.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting 6 months and say, hey, I got it, and I say, oh, I wanted to change this, I want to change that.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, and that will really start Rule 4 of the funnel, or could be any of the rules of the funnel. And the way that we're going to find a way to get around that and to mitigate that tendency would be to what Deming called operationally define our terms, and we'll talk about that in a few meetings. Okay, that's all we got. Have a good Monday evening.